Seeking help during the postgraduate studies. While undertaking the postgraduate studies, there will be times that you encounter difficulty in the research, which you are looking for the answers or solutions in order to resolve some problems during the research. Sometimes it is due to lacking of experience or relevant knowledge or some techniques or skills needed to overcome the difficulty before you can proceed with the next stages of the research. This is very normal and it usually happens. And when this happens, your work progress will be affected. You try hard to seek for solutions, reading through the literature, learning certain techniques, or reading through the manuals, learning from the YouTube, and you may not be able to find the solutions. In order to make sure your later progress is not significantly affected, most likely you will need to seek for help from various channels so that you can proceed with your research work. Two things that you need to know. First, facing the difficulty is very normal to you. This is a part of the postgraduate studies. Second, don't be afraid of seeking help, especially when you have tried your best, which you realize that to your own capacity, there will be some limitations which you cannot overcome unless you seek for help. This is different scenarios from those who are not independent, always hoping the other people to help them. If possible, somebody else do the research work on his behalf. We are not referring to this thing. You will still need to do your research work independently, proactively, and get yourself actively participating in the research. Only that you face some challenge which within your capacity is unable to overcome. Seeking for help from the others, it doesn't mean that you are not capable. It could be due to some blind spot that you overlook something, or it could be due to you don't have sufficient understanding on the topic that you are studying, or it could be due to you don't have the relevant techniques or skill in place, which you require some guidance, giving you some directions so that you may proceed with your research work. You are not asking somebody else to do on your behalf. The entire process is for you to learn something as a breakthrough to your existing ability and for you to keep up with the progress of your research work. These are the possible ways that you can seek for help. Of course, you can search for your supervisor and co-supervisor, seeking their opinions, technical guidance, so that you know what you should do next. Sometimes you may have some solution in mind, but you are in the middle of dilemma where each of the solutions, there are pros and cons, which either way may lead to you inevitably sacrificing something. Maybe you can seek for the advice from the supervisors. Is there any third opinions? Any other better solutions? Or you will have to choose whichever yields you higher benefits and brings you little harm to your research project. Sometimes you may encounter the situations that certain thing is beyond the capacity of your supervisor or co-supervisor. You may also seek for other advice from the professors, lecturers in your institutions, who you know they have the relevant expertise or skills. They should be ready to help you. Don't feel shy to knock on their doors, as those are the people in your institutions. Most likely you know them quite well, or they know you as well. You could try, see if they are willing to help. Sometimes you may also seek for industrial practitioners or experts in the field. Find your way to approach them, seeking for their experts and good advice from them. You may also get help from your fellow postgraduate colleagues. I believe they will be able to understand your situations. Most likely they are also having difficulty in their own research Helping each other is a good way for the postgraduate students to acquire their degrees. Sometimes you may need to seek help or advice from the lab technicians or librarian. You may seek for the librarians in terms of the resources in process of the library, or if you wish to locate certain literature, there are some facilities helping you to access those. I will advise most of the postgraduate students trying to follow up with the librarian. There are a lot of good universities have a very advanced library system, which normally we only know how to use the basic functions of the library, not knowing that there are much more resources than you can imagine which are ready in the library. Even if the librarian do not have those in the library, they have systems and channels to access it from the other institutions and etc. We only know the basic features of the library, which there are much more advanced way to utilize the library, and only postgraduate students know, especially when they are in desperate. It is always good of you to have a chat with the library. Know all the services that the librarian provides, which can be helpful to your research. As for the librarian, it is normally related to the lab work, the lab facilities, the equipments, or certain skills or operating certain instruments. Same thing, what you know about the lab probably are the basic service provided by the labs. In fact, there are more advanced services as well as the functions of the labs. You may also check with the technicians any advanced features of the labs that can be useful for your research work. Many may not aware, you only see the equipments in the labs, but you don't see the instrument in the storeroom. Probably they also have some features or some ways that you can access certain equipment which is not in the custody of the university. There are some channels which you may seek the advice from the lab technicians. Sometimes you need the technical advice, which you find a paper very closely related to your research. The author mentions something which you require further clarifications. You may even try to contact the authors. Drop an email to the authors. Normally the respective journals, in their journals paper, the emails are provided. Even you can't find the email, you can actually locate their profile from the Google Scholar or even search their name from the internet. It is easy to trace an academicians, as most of the university will have their academic staff disclosed to the public. You may also join some conference, seminar or short course in order to increase your knowledge as well as your competency related to your research. You may take the free time to communicate with the participants, speakers, facilitators, and etc. This also normally happens, especially when you are so desperate, since that you are joining the relevant event. You saw someone seems to have the relevant expertise. Don't feel shy to approach him. Normally, they are willing to share their knowledge. Also, you may seek advice from the research communities in the social media, such as from the Facebook, doctorate support groups, SPSS group, ResearchGate, and etc. This is another good channels of you. Sometimes I also see some researchers seeking help or having difficulty to acquire the file or certain journals papers, and there are always some useful resources being shared there, and you will see there are a lot of researchers that are willing to share their knowledge and the resources. You may have more channels to acquire your helps. Personally, most of the things here I done before during my postgraduate study. I remember myself knocking the doors of some lecturers in my institutions and seeking for advice. I also recall myself attending some seminars, conferences, and short courses, taking the free time, seeking advice from the participants, speakers, and facilitators. Also, I obtain help and assistance from my fellow postgraduate colleagues. I did went to send email to some author requesting for certain papers, but I did not obtain any response. But I remember myself, there were also researchers email me requesting for some papers, which I actually replied. This one, it will be very dependent on the author, whether they have time to reply. I'm not sure if you send email to ask for technical advice, whether the author is willing to reply you personally. I believe if you ask the authors for some papers published by him, some are quite generous to send you a copy. They also like their papers to be cited. During my time, social media is not that popular, or probably I was not quite active with the social media. I was not aware of those doctorate support groups, but nowadays, I see a lot of my students actually manage to make good use of this. Sometimes they get response and sometimes they don't, but at least you try. What we are talking here is we are seeking advice from the channels or people listed here, which are mainly on the key knowledge or key directions that enlighten you to proceed with your research. You are not outsourcing your research work, asking somebody else to do it for you. This is not acceptable as a postgraduate student, because everything goes back to the fundamental. Your postgraduate study is meant for you to gain the relevant knowledge and skills. You should not fake your learning process in exchange with your degrees.